What if the very thing everyone tells men to do when they're struggling is the thing that makes many of them feel even more misunderstood? Go to therapy. It's the modern answer to everything. Depressed? Go to therapy. Lost? Go to therapy. Heartbroken? Go to therapy. Angry? Go to therapy. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to talk about. For many men, therapy doesn't feel like healing. It feels like speaking a language they were never taught. And sometimes it feels like paying someone to misunderstand them. Tonight, we're diving into a controversial question. Why does therapy often fail men? Not because men are broken, not because therapy is useless, but because there is a hidden conflict between the way many men experience suffering and the way modern therapy often tries to treat it.
Most people assume pain is universal. Sadness is sadness, anxiety is anxiety, trauma is trauma. But the way men experience suffering is often radically different. From childhood, many boys learn one lesson. Your value comes from what you do, not what you feel. Nobody has to say it directly. Life teaches it. A boy who wins gets attention. A boy who performs gets respect. A boy who solves problems gets rewarded. But a boy who complains, a boy who cries, a boy who appears weak, he often learns that vulnerability comes with consequences. So he adapts. He becomes useful, strong, capable, silent. And over time, he loses the ability to describe what's happening inside him, not because he doesn't feel, but because he was never taught the language. Now imagine that man finally walks into a therapist's office. He's already uncomfortable. He's already skeptical. He already feels like a failure for needing help. And then he hears a question. How does that make you feel? He freezes. Not because he's hiding something, because he genuinely doesn't know. For years, he survived by focusing on action, responsibility, and solutions. Now he's being asked to dissect emotions he barely understands. It's like asking someone to speak a language they've never learned. And when he struggles to answer, people assume he's emotionally unavailable. But many men aren't emotionally unavailable. They're emotionally untranslated.
Here is the uncomfortable reality. Many men seek help because something in their life is collapsing. Their marriage, their finances, their confidence, their purpose, their future. Yet therapy often focuses on understanding feelings rather than changing circumstances. To therapists, this makes sense, but to many men, it feels frustrating. Imagine a man drowning. He says, "My life is falling apart." And the response feels like, "Tell me more about how you feel about drowning." Meanwhile, all he can think of is, "Can somebody help me get out of the water?" This disconnect creates resentment, not because emotions don't matter, but because many men instinctively seek movement before reflection, action before analysis, solutions before discussion. The deeper problem is that many men are not suffering from emotional wounds alone. They're suffering from a lack of purpose. Modern society talks endlessly about happiness, but men throughout history were rarely driven by happiness. They were driven by mission, a reason to wake up, a burden worth carrying, something bigger than themselves. When that disappears, a strange emptiness emerges. A man can have freedom, entertainment, comfort, and still feel dead inside, because comfort cannot replace purpose. Yet purpose is something therapy often struggles to provide. A therapist can help you understand your pain, but they cannot tell you what your life should be devoted to. That question remains yours alone. And for many men, that question is the source of the darkness. There is another reason therapy often fails men. The mask. Every man wears one. The strong mask. The confident mask. The successful mask. The mask that says, "I'm fine," even when he's falling apart. The terrifying thing about masks is that eventually they stop being disguises. They become identities. the man forgets who he is underneath. And when therapy asks him to remove the mask, panic appears. Because the mask isn't just protection anymore. It's survival. Without it, he doesn't know who he is. So he sits in silence. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he's terrified of what might emerge if he starts speaking honestly. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung believed every human being carries a shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, the anger, the envy, the weakness, the fear, the darkness. Many men spend their entire lives running from this shadow. They build careers to escape it, relationships to escape it, money to escape it, distractions to escape it. But the shadow follows, patiently, waiting, and eventually it appears as depression, rage, addiction, isolation, or self-destruction. The real challenge is not talking about feelings. The real challenge is confronting the parts of yourself you've spent years trying to bury. And that process is painful, far more painful than most people realize. Statistics consistently show that men are often less likely to seek therapy and more likely to drop out compared to women. Why? Because many men enter therapy expecting immediate transformation. When they don't see results quickly, they leave. Others feel judged. Some feel misunderstood. Some simply don't connect with the therapist. And some discover that talking alone isn't enough. They need action, discipline, community, purpose, goals, responsibility, a reason to keep moving. Healing looks different for different people. For some men, the breakthrough doesn't happen on a couch. It happens in a gym, a workshop, a brotherhood, a difficult mission, a meaningful challenge, or through building a life worth fighting for. So does therapy suck for men? Sometimes, but not for the reason people think. The problem is not necessarily therapy itself. The problem is expecting one tool to solve every problem. A man who lacks purpose doesn't only need insight. A man drowning in chaos doesn't only need emotional awareness. A man trapped in self-hatred doesn't only need conversation. He may need action, direction, responsibility, meaning, connection, and yes, sometimes therapy too. The danger begins when we pretend one answer works for everyone, because human suffering is far more complicated than that. Perhaps the biggest lie of modern life is that healing is simple. It isn't. Sometimes healing means talking. Sometimes it means confronting your shadow. Sometimes it means changing your environment. Sometimes it means rebuilding your life from the ground up. And sometimes the darkest realization of all is this: no therapist, no book, and no philosophy can tell you why your life matters. That answer cannot be prescribed. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be outsourced. It must be discovered. And until a man finds something worth suffering for, no amount of advice will fill the emptiness. Because beneath every crisis, every addiction, every silent struggle, lies one haunting question: what am I living for? And that is a question no one can answer for you. The man who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche.